The Lamb opened the second seal. I heard the second living creature say, "Come." Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make men slay each other. Now, I need to step aside and mention something that I probably could have mentioned earlier, but will be important later. If you notice the way the language is written here, every one of these seals happens exactly the same pattern. It goes like this. The Lamb opened the seal, then I heard a voice, then I looked and I saw. Every one of them happens the same way. The seal is opened, I heard a voice, and then I looked. I heard a voice, and then I looked. I heard a voice say, "Come." I looked, and there's a horse with a rider on it. I heard a voice say, "Come," and then I looked, and there's a horse with a rider on it. I heard a voice say, "Come," and then I looked, and there's a horse with a rider on it. You follow the pattern? It's every single time. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit. But of course, the second seal with peace leaving the earth, again, that's nothing new. Peace has left many times. Thankfully, it has often returned, but it has left many times. Seal number 3. There is a great famine that happens. You'll notice here that it says a quart of wheat will cost a day's wages. I did a little bit of math. And here in Lafayette, the average household income is about $50,000. That's an average. That doesn't mean you're making that, nor does it mean that you're not average or you're weird if you're making less or more. It just means that's the average, mathematical average. So I did a little bit of thinking through this, and if everybody worked 52 weeks out of the year, hopefully you don't, but if everybody worked 52 weeks out of the year, 5 days a week, that equates to roughly $200 a day. Back in Jesus' time, the daily wage was paid with a coin called the denarius. And so when this says a day's wage, it's talking about what you would get when you would work for a whole day. So for us, that's $200. Can you imagine spending $200 on a bag of flour? There are only 2 ways that could happen. Way number 1 is that there's been some type of natural circumstance that created a food shortage that is so dramatic, it will cost you $200 to buy a bag of flour. If that day ever came, we would all be in incredible trouble, wouldn't we? There's another way that could be caused. It could be caused through just economic collapse. I know many of you feel like flour is a lot more expensive than it used to be. Last year, maybe it was $1. This year, it's $2, and you've got less dollars to buy that. Now, I don't know exactly what your financial situation is like going on right now, but there are many people who are facing financial hardships, and if the value of the dollar were to absolutely collapse, then wheat would cost that much. So this is talking about a famine. Maybe it's economic, maybe it's natural. We don't actually know. We just know that it's a famine. Seal number 4. This rider is given the name Death, which reminds us that all of these riders can probably be considered to be metaphorical, not necessarily a specific person, because there is no angel or human named Death. And so since this rider is metaphorical, the other riders are likely metaphorical, not necessarily talking about a specific conqueror, but maybe just a spirit of conquering that becomes present on the earth, say in that first seal. But the 4th seal is Death and Hades, the location where dead people go, and they're given power over 1/4 of the earth. For those of you who maybe know a little bit of something about Revelation, these are they who would be called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And if you can pay attention to what we just looked at, these are not like if you've ever seen the movie The Lord of the Rings and you've got these ring wraiths on those horses, you know, and the screeching, and they're like smelly and they're chasing down everybody and they're really scary. That's not what these guys are. These are metaphorical symbols of coming humanity beating itself up, combined with some other things going on, like famine and pestilence and disease and stuff. But so far what we've seen is nothing new in the world. I mean, we've seen all this stuff before. We've seen warfare, we've seen famine, we've seen all this stuff before. And so when Seal 5 gets opened, we turn a corner. Seal 5, we find martyrs standing before God, crying out, "How much longer?" Barack Obama's approval rating is around 54 this week. It's significantly lower than when he was first elected because people are beginning to ask the question, how much longer is this economic recovery going to take? And because it feels like it's taking a long time, they're getting a little impatient. And they keep saying, how much longer is it going to take? How much longer is it going to take? And people have a general tendency when we're facing difficulty to ask that question, how much longer until we get to the point of ease and comfort? These martyrs are in a place of ease and comfort, and they're asking the question, how much longer, God, is it going to take before you actually bring the judgment that is supposed to come? All the stuff we've seen up till now, seals 1 through 4, that's standard human fare. That's just the way that people live. We destroy ourselves constantly. Yeah, that stuff is worse. A whole fourth of the planet is being faced with this death thing, whatever is happening there, the disease, the war, the sword, all that stuff. That's a lot of people, like 1.75 billion people on the planet, 6 times the size of the United States. That's how many people are affected by Seal 4. But still, that's the kind of stuff that we see all the time. The martyrs say, how much longer, God, is there going to be until you bring judgment? And God says this thing that is confusing to me, kind of a little sad, and I'm not exactly sure what to take it on my human level of thinking, because he says, we're going to wait until the number of martyrs reaches the goal. The number of those killed like you were reaches the target value. I've been to fundraisers before, and you know how in a fundraiser you've got this like thermometer off to the side, and it gets up higher as you get closer and closer to that $1 million mark or whatever, and every dollar that comes in, that little thermometer goes up. It's almost as if God is saying he's got a little thermometer over here of dead people. And every time a new martyr is killed, it's getting closer and closer to that goal. And there's a part of me that's just saying, man, that seems just mean. That God would allow his servants to die like that just to reach some numerical goal. I think we need to shift our thinking. Because what it's really trying to communicate to us is that martyrdom is not a random thing. In fact, God is in charge of even it. When his servants are killed because of their faith, God's in charge of that. It doesn't just happen randomly. He's in charge of it. I remember when I was in Denver, the Columbine tragedy took place. And so for weeks, it was on the news that the students, all the news stuff was just covered with Columbine stuff. And I remember hearing the story of Rachel Scott, the one